we're really, really excited to have you guys all here. My name is Rachel Caden, and I'm the Executive Director of the Forsyth County Drug Awareness Council. If you're not aware of what that is, we are a nonprofit coalition. We're made up of all community members that just come together to develop drug and alcohol prevention projects and programs for our community at events like this. So if after this event you are so inspired to help out, we run off volunteers and we really could use your help. So either come find me after this event or you can visit our table and sign up. And you can help out at any and support any event that we do already. Create your own event. We have council meetings every first Wednesday of the month at 8 a.m. at the United Way. So there's a lot of ways that you can volunteer and help out. And it's a really important cause in our community, and we really, really would appreciate it. So the other thing is on April 27th at the Cumming City Center, we are doing the Walk for Recovery. You should have gotten a flyer on your way in. If not, go get it on the way out. It's a community event to help eliminate stigma, which is a big issue we've run into as a council, unfortunately, and we really could use the support at that event to invite people, come to that event, just to kind of show that it doesn't discriminate, it affects everybody, doesn't matter who you are, and it's an issue in our town, and all towns. So please join us for the Walk for Recovery, April 27th. But today, we are happy to host this drug summit with UNG at this beautiful campus, and they have been very lovely and wonderful. Ken specifically at helping us out. Can we get a big round of applause for UNG? The second thing I'd like to give is to all these resource tables that have come out. It shows our community and the unity, and that's what we need, and how strong we are. And I'm very grateful that you guys are all here, and that you come out, and that you're willing to support us and support the cause. So all resource tables, thank you very much for being here. But last, I really just want to thank all of you for being here. I know it's a Tuesday night. It's beautiful outside, and all of you guys are sitting here, and I hope that you know that unfortunately, drugs and alcohol, they're just not going anywhere. And you do need a united community to come together to be able to fight that battle. And the fact that all of you are here sitting in these seats shows that you guys are the people that are willing to focus on the future. And I'm very grateful, and I want to say thank you for being here. So give yourself a round of applause. That being said, I'm going to turn it over now to a huge advocate of drug and alcohol prevention and a board member of the Forsyth County Drug Awareness Council to kick off and host this event, Miss Cindy Mills.
Thank you all for being here. It's a blessing to be in a community that cares. And Rachel was just saying, I get so nervous when I'm at these things, and I said, honestly, the people that are here that are in recovery are some of the nicest people you'll ever speak in front of, because they have they're just so caring, and they don't have these unrealistic expectations. So I thank you all for being here, and I like that we try to support each other, and I'm thankful for each of you that are here. If our first panel will come on up, I want to thank Drew Hayes for putting this together and give y'all just a little background. In the past probably 4 years, we had these we started off in 2013, and we're having them at the Forsyth Conference Center. We were very involved with the Sheriff's Office. We did, mock bedroom scenes and showing people where kids hide drugs. And, we did we had a lot of law enforcement speak, judges speak, all different kinds of, that's a good thing. But then we turned toward kids. And when Full Circle was here, which we miss a lot, we wanted the kids to tell us what they were seeing in the schools. We wanted to hear what was going on. And then our last one, I think we had our drug counselors up there with them. And so this one, I felt like it was very important that we hear from our school system. There's a lot of, I know this is shocking, but there's a lot of untrue things that are said on social media. I've never experienced that, but I hear that. And I think that it is it's really good for us to show what a partnership we have with the school system and what all the school system's doing to help. There's not a more loving group of people. I'm looking up there at these, and I mean, I get calls from them. They love kids and they want to help kids and they want kids to make good decisions, and we're so fortunate to have this in our county. And I think lots of times they get a bad rap, and especially with all that's going on with mental health and people, you know, you get one group saying, I don't think the school should be involved in mental health. Well, I can tell y'all with wonderful certainty that they did not wake up one day and say, I know I went to school and I was educated to be a teacher, but I really won't be a mental health professional. That just didn't happen. But don't let that get in the way of you thinking they don't care about kids, because they do. And they're doing everything possible to give kids a level, balanced playing field and an opportunity to succeed. So we're not going to go through everybody's names because we're limited on time. We're going to get right into the questions so y'all can get the most out of this hour and so that we're together. So we're going to start with, I don't know who we're going to start with. And then y'all, whoever feels like they should answer, don't feel like everybody has to answer. So what is the primary challenge involving drugs and vapes that you're seeing and facing at your school? And what has you the most concerned? And you've got mics in front of you. And y'all give everybody before they start answering, give Jason Handline and Forsyth Central. I always forget.
Good.
And I'm so thankful for their kids being here and y'all being a part of this. And Jason always comes through for suicide summits, drug summits, everything. And it doesn't cost us anything. And he just does such a great job. So thank you. All right. So y'all got the first question. Who wants to?
Okay. Oh. I want to pull the skirt up. I'm Katie, and I would say the most challenging concept that I've learned this year with our addiction, we have an addiction club called ODAT, One Day at a Time, CK Adelante, which means move forward in Spanish, and is that the perception of harm is real. Like they already know that it's harmful. All the students know it's harmful, but they do it anyway because it's easier, it's accessible, it's cheap for the most part because they share, primarily talking about vapes. And I think that's what is so challenging, is that we usually come at students like letting them know how harmful things are. And as great as posters are and things like that, you know, open sourcing is alive and well, and students can look things up on their own. They know what the harm is, but they are using anyway.
So the Scared Straight programs are not working.
Not at least.
Anybody else? Any of y'all? Drew, or
I would say one of our bigger challenges that we're facing are the accessibility of the THC vapes. And the THC is so potent. So when our students are taking a hit on a THC vape, a lot of times there are pretty extreme reactions that can occur and can be very scary. So I think that's been one of our bigger challenges. It's pretty much odorless, they're easy to hide. A lot of companies are making vapes that look like school products. And so it's very difficult to catch. And then, you know, it's just so potent and they're so addictive because of that as well. And then it leads to a lot of psychosis or, you know, other issues. So it's really frightening, but that's one of our bigger, I would say one of our bigger challenges is with THC vapes.
anybody else?
I'll do 2 seconds. I'm just going to echo what they said. I think it's also families and community just understanding what that potency is and how quickly that can become an issue for kids. I think there's a common misconception. I'm old, I'm 52, a class of 1990, right, 100 years ago, not quite, but that scenario. THC at that point, if somebody was smoking a bowl or a joint, was 2.4%. Now in 2025, a lot of these things are 30, 40, 50, 60 on up percent, especially the edibles and some of those other things. And I think a lot of times when I speak to parents, when we see things, they're like, it's just weed, it's just THC, it's this other thing. And it's not that. It's something much more significant. And I think it's just important that everybody be aware of it and understand that it's important to protect from it and to address it as quickly as we can. So.
Just a follow-up question, because I always do that and I don't stay on script. But do you think because so many states have legalized marijuana that it really reduces the whole, we try to reduce stigma for people in recovery, and I think the stigma about marijuana has changed so much that even parents are saying it's not harmful to a kid, and they're not taking into account a forming brain. Do y'all see that?
100%. And think how unacceptable cigarettes are to us now, right? Like, no, you're not gonna smoke cigarettes, or no, I'm not gonna have whatever this is, but somehow vape is different, somehow THC is different, somehow some of these other things. But the reality is it's much more harmful, and it's a setup for something much more significant. The other concern with the vapes is you don't know what's in them, right? When somebody goes to smoke or do these other things, leading cause of death in the United States for the ages 18 to 45 is drug overdose. Fentanyl in particular is a huge part of that scenario, and that's with Narcan being something that's readily available, right? To recover and to bring kids back and to bring people back and to do those other things. So the reality is we're playing with something that we shouldn't be. And understanding that and educating people and taking care of it, and then when somebody's started, helping them to stop, I think is a big part. But yes, the legalization of it and the cultural piece of this isn't a big deal, I think we've been sold a bill of goods with that. That's my personal.
So what would you like parents to know about the ways your school is helping and to help prepare students, and how do we foster a sense of partnership with parents instead of it's us versus them, that it's all of us working for the good of the student?
I'd say definitely the partnership piece with the parents is huge for the schools. We want to build connections with the kids, but equally we want to build the connections with the parents because we are a community. The school and the parents working together is what's going to make our community a better place. And from the elementary perspective, the preventative piece, and we want the kids at school to have that safe person to go to. We want the parents to know how to have conversations with their kids early on. So that your child comes to you when they have questions or they see something they're not sure about, instead of going to Google or to their peers or to social media to find out what it is that they're hearing about or seeing.
I would just say at the middle school level, we are looking at prevention. Obviously, we do not have, it's not the same as high school, but we are trying to make sure that kids have trusted adults, that they have someone they can talk to. The kids do know that it's harmful, 100%, and actually getting kids to feel comfortable enough to come to an adult and say, I know that my friend is vaping, or I know they're doing something they're not supposed to. That has been really important, and so we've been able to stop it ahead of time. But I think just as a parent, I'm a high school parent, and having open conversations and saying, there could be bleach in that vape. There could be fentanyl, there could be, and just starting early, all the way in elementary, I think that's really important. Instead of being afraid to have those conversations, that's what we try to tell our parents.
I had a funny story, and then I want y'all to be thinking of your programs that you offer. But I had, probably 10 years ago, a Fox News reporter contacted me, and it was when vaping was just breaking big time, and all the different colored cartridges and marketing to kids and blah, blah, blah. And they asked me, could they come to my house and interview me about the drug council and what we were doing about prevention? And could I get some kids to come and speak? And I said, yeah, but it probably, the only people I can get this late notice will probably be my church kids. And I know they haven't vaped. Let me tell you, the kids were honest. Kids will be honest. All you gotta do is, parents, you just need, or somebody needs to talk to kids, because they spill the beans so easy. And they want to talk. A lot of them are looking for somebody just to listen. And I was floored, because I would have bet everything that these 30 little kids I'd asked had never tried vaping, and all 3 had. So I think that to say that not my child, or my kid won't do it, or any of those things. I heard Matt Meyer, who's a part of our drug council at Insight, say many times when a parent tells him that their child got caught the first time, he's like, no. They didn't get caught the first time. They've probably been engaged in this for probably a year. I mean, it definitely 6 months and before they get caught. So share about the programs, anything about the programs y'all offer. I know you talked about your club that we've partnered with Rotary. Some
Thank you, by the way. East is a community strategy school, and we have a few of our high schools are like that, where they bring in outside resources to students and letting the parents know that we have that, but getting their feedback. So a part of that we found, obviously, with our PBIS data, which is positive behavior intervention, is when we looked at that, vaping was really high on there on our behavior referrals, but also when we surveyed parents, that was their number one concern, especially with the increase of fentanyl and drugs and just how normalized it is. And so we kind of saw that students, because of the stigma, they were not going to therapy. They were not getting counseling. And so, staring at Kirsten over there, we partner with Therapeutic Recovery Network, and we created a club that if anybody at East is affected by addiction, whether it be your phone, whether it be coffee, and we have a coach, Lloyd, he's been around, but he comes and makes a coffee bar. He's our barista for the club, but he talks about his addiction to coffee. He says, I do decaf, and he's modeling that for the students, like, hey, we all have something that preoccupies our mind, but there's some things that are more addictive than others. So we created this club that, friends can invite their friends to, and we just have different topics that we talk about. Kirsten is there, or one of her therapists, Molly, just to answer any questions about addiction, because I'm not an addiction-specific therapist. And so we're able to have them start talking. Like you said, if you ask them, they'll open the floodgate. And we have kids that have been in residential for a year and a half, to kids that were caught once and their parents are making them go to the club, but everything in between. We have a great mentor back there, looking at him, Chris Stewart, who is a mentor with Fireproof, but he comes in too and just kind of offers support to the students. So we're trying to kind of normalize that help-seeking behavior through the community school strategy, not just with the club, but volunteering. I have my ODAT students volunteer and hand out birthday cards to students throughout the building. So giving them more of a sense of purpose, but also, connecting them to other resources.
And research shows over and over again that it's all about kids connecting to somebody or something. It's about relationships. So how do you do that from an elementary, middle? I mean, it's good that Lakeside is not experiencing as much, because our surveys show that kids are using marijuana in Forsyth County at the average age of 12.3. My granddaughter's 12. It scares me to death. So how are we trying, because I did mock interviews at North for many, many years, and the big thing kids kept telling me, especially little boys, and they kept saying, I don't have any friends. And I'm like, you're in a school with 2,400 people, which I think is part of the problem, that I don't have any friends. And it's just not, well, I do have one friend, he's in California, and we do gaming together. And I'm thinking, that's some pervert. That is not your friend. That is not who your parents want you to be friends with. But that is I think it's a real issue that a lot of kids feel invisible. I know when I was principal for the day with you, I could tell they want to blend in with the wall.
I was gonna say, we try to do where we connect all the kids, so we actually, we ask them, who is your trusted adult, who is your trusted student in the building, to make sure so that we can actually identify the kids that aren't connected, because we do know the ones that are not connected are the ones that are typically going to go try to find something else to fill up their life. But also, while we do not have it as prevalent as a high school, we do know that it's there, and we make sure that the kids, again, feel comfortable to come tell us. But is that constant communication with the parents. But we also have sources of strength, which has constant campaigns about like who belong, how to connect kids, doing mindfulness in the classroom, in our health classrooms. They do the drug programs, but honestly, like the kids know, like this is bad. They know that. But also having them understand like nicotine also is addictive, because that's something I think a lot of kids don't understand, that nicotine is addictive. And so you go, oh, it's okay. And then it just leads to other things. So the mindfulness sources of strength, and then just taking our counselors, they are constantly just talking to kids and talking to their parents and giving them different resources if they need it. And not saying, oh, well, you're 12, you'll be fine. It's really just connecting them to other people.
I will say in elementary, so we do a daily morning meeting in every classroom, and that gives time for the students to connect with each other and connect with their teacher, and helps to build those bonds from the first day of school. They know they have that safe space. They also use that time to celebrate something great that's going on with each student, so they have the opportunity to share or to pass if they don't have something they want to share with the group that day. But we've seen it really foster connections among students. And you mentioned we're a PBIS school also, so just working on positively enforcing students who are meeting the expectations, and being respectful and being responsible, and realizing that they are a leader, whether they're 5 or 11. Like, you can be a leader already, and to be an upstander, to stand up for the good things that are going on around you, and if somebody's doing something they shouldn't do, to speak up to your trusted adult or go home and tell a parent, so that we can help everybody have the most positive outcomes.
And I know Amy and Drew both, we have had drug counselors at North and at Gateway now we're in the 6th year, or maybe we're going into our 6th year. And we were able to secure a grant at the end of December that we found out about, that is huge, huge news for the county, because we've been able now, with county paying for one more and the school system and DBHDD, or the opioid funding, that we'll be able to add 3 more drug counselors into the schools, which is huge. But tell just briefly, and I know Emily's coming up in a little bit, but what does that drug counselor mean to the school?
So we do have a full-time, we call her our substance prevention coach at North Forsyth High School.
Sounds better.
And yes, part of that was getting our community on board. So substance prevention coach is just a little easier on the ear. And so our full-time counselor meets with students weekly in group setting, also individually on a regular basis. They also provide monthly functions. So the function is going to be something that is fun, to let the students know, hey, we can have a good time together without substances involved. But I do think some of the greatest value that we have found in having our prevention coach with us full-time daily is that our students know who they can go to when they are having a bad day and they're needing a little extra encouragement or a little extra help. Our teachers know who to turn to when they are concerned. So that's kind of what really birthed the idea in my mind, was I had students that I knew needed support and intervention, and I didn't know who to turn to get help for them. And so when this kind of came up, I kind of jumped on the opportunity to have a person at our school. But I do think it's been beneficial for our teachers and for our students and for parents to know that there's help available and how to find that resource. Then also, I think that for our students, they are now much more comfortable talking about some of their challenges. I think that they realize that their struggle is not their identity, and that there is help available and there's collective help, that there's a lot of support, a lot of people in the building that are rooting for them and are there encouraging them. And so that's helped tremendously, just to give some element of comfort to what's happening, so that they can feel comfortable going to Ainsley and asking for help, or they'll swing by and say, I just really need a minute, can I sit here with you? I'm like, sure. But it's helping with some amount of prevention for discipline issues, so they'll get help before they get in trouble, which is really good. And then, like I said, just to know that there is support available has been huge.
And that there's people there that care. You know,
Absolutely.
it offers hope. Instead of judgment, it offers hope. And
Right.
I know I've been on some of our calls with the state. I love to be on the cutting edge, and this was very much on the cutting edge, and it was something that people had not considered doing. And we didn't get warm and fuzzy reception from everybody in the school system when it first came forward. And now, either times have got worse or we've shown the value because many more principals are wanting, drug counselors now or substance abuse professionals. But it was so fearful that the parents would react in a negative way. And instead of the love that it was coming forth and the concern and the wanting to give a hand up, it was viewed in the beginning like, we don't have a problem. That's not happening at our school. And it was, and it is. So Drew, you want to talk about Drew?
Sure.
Drew's received
The two
reward.
things. One, Ainsley. Hey, wait. Ainsley is the drug counselor over there at North High School. Please give her a round of applause. He was instrumental, Dykes, on the end in this being something that worked at North High. And part of it was because she's beloved in the school, she's beloved in that community, and she was going to be a conduit to make sure that the kids got what they needed and who they needed. Because when you're in a big institution, you have to be able to navigate all of those pieces. And it takes people doing that. I was very fortunate in that Cindy and Matt Meyer were on the front end, and so was Sheriff Ryan Freeman in helping us get the first, I call it drug counselor. I call it drug counselor. In terms of coming in the door at Gateway. And that was when we knew that 55% of my kids were coming in the door because of a drug offense, drug, alcohol, but really at this point it's THC 90 whatever % of the time. It's mostly high school, overwhelmingly, in terms of what's there, but we're directly trying to address it. We're directly trying to help families with it. We've also got a couple moms who come and speak to the kids their children have struggled with addiction and have overcome it or still sober at this point later in their life. And just seeing that this is a team approach and that's what we're trying to do. Our goal in the school system is not to punish. Our goal is to support and educate. Dr. Beard was instrumental, Mitch Young has been instrumental in all of those things, Cindy and her group making that possible. Emily over there is our current drug counselor, and she does an amazing job. Our number one rule is meet with kids, run groups, have these activities and make sure they're there. But the shift that I've seen over the course of the time is when I first walked in the door before we got the drug counseling, I was playing whack-a-mole. There were pills, there were kids that were clearly high in the building, there were all these other things that I was dealing with at Gateway. And it's just not like that anymore because the culture is different and the kids will call each other out for not doing what they need to do, or they'll go get help and they'll do some of these other things. And so it takes having that anchor and that support to go and do it. And the same with parents. The term I use is they come in hot, right? Like angry that their kid got sent, all of these other things. Louis Daniel is my assistant principal. If you'll wave, please, Louis. He does an amazing job of talking to the families right away and listening to them. But the fact that there's a drug counselor there, they view that as support, not punishment. Again, the statement was made, there's been a couple thousand kids who've come through the door since I've been in charge. I've heard at least 100 times, if not 200 times, this is the first time. It was the first time I just got caught in the bathroom. It has not been true a single time. Like as we go through and do it. So I want to end those myths that by the time a kid gets caught in school, they're using and they've been using for a while and they need help. And so if you're a parent and you're like, hey, I'm going to fight the school on this, please really do the deep dive look, because if you are starting at 12.3 or 13 or 14 and you're getting caught at 16, you got 3 years of use under your belt, right? We got to get help at that point. We don't want it to be that 18 to 45 number, right, that we were talking about before. So anyway, that to me is what it is. There is a lot of support being provided, and our school system is on the cutting edge, because they ask me to talk all the time. Like she was talking about the state or whatever. superintendents will call me, they'll have these conversations. Nobody else is doing this. And it has been a benefit. And so just super appreciative for all of y'all in the community, super appreciative for Cindy and everybody else, but this is a challenge we can overcome. But we have to do it, right? And steps have to be taken, so.
I want to end on, and I love what one of you said about you can be addicted to different things, like your coach talking about coffee. I know that the school board, Superintendent Nick Young has told me that they're looking Lindsay said they're reading The Anxious Generation. If you haven't read it, I recommend you read it. It's very moving. It made me terrified that my grandkids were playing on an iPad, like I was running to take it away from them. But I am very appreciative that the school system's looking at that. I serve on the North. We've changed names. I think we're United now. We were Synergy or something else for a while. And I'm with the principals, and I hear them talk about that the ages are getting younger and younger, and that there's kindergartners with smartphones, and how challenging. Let's end y'all's panel talking about smartphones and the addiction to them and what it's doing to a child's brain.
If you were to ask Lakeside parents, I'm pretty passionate about the social media, and my 10th grader also, who just now got very limited social media. Kim Greasy's back there, and she has what they said, and she knows. We had to go to a 0 cell phone use 8:30 to 4:30, absolutely none, and it's very rare if we see a phone because they were not able to concentrate. They literally were just waiting for a Snapchat to come through, or waiting for an Instagram like, or waiting for that, and that is an addiction. I truly do feel like it's an addiction, and they also, Kristen and I were talking about earlier, that is where the younger ones, they're watching people do things. They're watching them vape and watching them do all these things. So the social media, we tell parents, we will do what we can from 8:30 to 4:30 with social media. We are locking down the phones, but that is your phone, and it is up to you. That's your phone. Your child does something they're not supposed to do on the phone, you need to take that phone away, because otherwise you are giving them a car to drive without giving them a license and without teaching them how to drive. And they're just handing kindergarten, first grade, a phone and saying, okay, and the kids are doing cute TikTok dances in second grade, and and it's open for the public. The amount of kids that we would see their TikToks, and it was open for anyone to see. And I will say, before we locked it down, and really started to have serious conversation with parents about social media, we saw kids doing some very scary things on social media in middle school. So I'm not saying it does not happen, because it does. I'll probably get a P3 tip about it tonight. But I will say it's much less, because we just really partner with the parents about it.
And I'll piggyback off of that. Like, elementary is not too early to have those conversations with kids. You hand them a smartphone and you're handing them access to the entire world. I have a 4 and 6-year-old, and their ability to navigate my phone when they get their hands on it is scary, without me ever having taught them how to do it. And they either figured out themselves, their friends have showed them, but it's so important to have those conversations now about what are you seeing on the internet, how do we safely navigate the internet, what is acceptable at what ages, and how much access do you want the world to have to your child, whether that's through video games. The chat features can be pretty scary, the people that can contact even through a video game. And we have a lot of conversations at the elementary level of social medias for age 13 and up, so you shouldn't have any access to social media in elementary school because you're not 13. And that is eye-opening to kids. They don't even realize that they're not supposed to be on it yet. So having those conversations and having them early, like, it is not too early to talk to them about the importance of the phone. It's kind of like we put them in the car and we make sure they put their seatbelts on. Well, if you're going to hand them a phone, we've got to make sure that they know how to use that safely also.
And I know that when you're talking about mental health in schools, the anxiousness and depression and the bullying and all the things, it just exponentially goes up when everybody has access to seeing likes, seeing new things, seeing all these things that produces negative thoughts in kids' heads lots of times. Anything else on that?
I definitely think that for phones, it completely takes their attention. They cannot concentrate with access to a phone. It's very distracting. And so just in general, and speaking about just general education and learning, it's very difficult for them to focus and pay attention and learn what they need to when they have a phone in their hand. So I do think that a lot of our teachers are limiting phone use in class, which has been good, but then they still have access in between classes. And so that brings up a lot of social anxieties, as you mentioned, a lot of comparisons. And then with that, then they start to, just kind of fall into that depression where I'm not as good, or even the bullying is so much easier when you're looking at a screen instead of a person. So there's just a lot that comes with, a lot of difficulties that come with it. And teenagers, they're not known to make great decisions, and so they will post things and say things that, will forever be able to be pulled back up and found, and so that's very scary as well. And then also just general access to anything that's in the world, whether it's a substance or another adult, or an adult, I should say, that they should not be contacting, or, there's so much that they then have access to. And so, that's pretty scary too.
And I'll just add, as a district, we work on digital citizenship too. And so we're trying to teach the kids about their digital footprint and the impact of once you put something out there, it's going to be out there forever.
Terry can speak more than I can, but I have heard our law enforcement in our drug council meetings talk about how difficult it is to keep up with the apps on kids' phones and the drug purchasing going on in the schools. That it's very difficult with the changing and the guards, I don't even know what they're called, the walls, the whatever, and as quick as they change the app to be able to keep up with it. And that's something, I know that parents, I hear parents say, well, we want our kid to have a cell phone at school because of that possible shooter that comes in. But at the same time, we're inviting drug dealers into our school. We're inviting all these other bad things that likely are happening multiple times a day. Not just, not saying that a shooting can't occur, but yet there's a lot of other evils that come with it. Anybody else? Will end.
My comment on the phones is it's your phone, it's not their phone, if you're the parent. And I was listening to it on Audible, I'm reading it, and then also listening, and my kids were all in the car, and one of the parents made a comment in it that said they just felt like they couldn't take the phone away from the kids, and all my 4 children went, what? All of them. And I'm like, right, it's a great question. Can a parent take a phone away? They're like, yes. I'm like, how do you know that? Because you take it, everything, right, you don't use it the way you're supposed to, it's gone. But we kind of have to decide that. Just like you said, a lot of y'all live in gated communities. You did everything you could to protect. You picked the best school for your kids to go to, but then we hand them a device that gives everybody access to them that we would want to keep out. And so just knowing that, understanding that in your power as a parent, I think is a big part.
We did put money in the grant we're hoping to be able to empower parents with this kind of knowledge and do the people that have CHAMPS program are enhancing CHAMPS, having a graduation night and bringing parents in and trying to talk to them about devices like this. So y'all help me give this panel a great So with this group, we're going to talk more about our substance abuse counselors and we've got a very brave young man, Jake, that's with us tonight. And Jake, if you don't care, I'm going to start with you right off the bat.
Sweet.
And I want you, if you will, to briefly share with this group your story.
So I would say the first time I used drugs other than nicotine was freshman year, like the summer of 8th grade, going into the freshman year. You know, like just going to like a school party and thinking it's harmless. And it kind of just grew from there. You know, like went from like buying 1 a week to buying 2 a week to going through one in a day. Sorry, I'm not getting nervous. And it only like really grew from there. You know, then it went from the carts to actual weed, and then from actual weed, it went to selling actual weed, realizing I can make money off of it, you know, and smoke it for free. And that's kind of where a lot of things went downhill for me. You know, it went from just like leaving a cart in my car at school to bringing it into school with me, and then it went to smoking actual weed, like in my car before going into school in the parking lot, and just leaving actual weed, like fair amounts of it in my car, and just selling it to people in the school, just not really thinking anything of it because no one really like batted an eye at it. Like had no teachers coming up to me asking, no principals coming up to me asking, so it only like really grew from there. And then my junior year, I had met this girl, and she was getting Xanax prescribed to her. And I started taking Xanax like pretty religiously. And if you guys don't know, it's a benzoid, so it's one of the only drugs that can kill you. Oh, sorry, I'm still like really nervous. And so I started like hanging out, and then eventually dating this girl. Just like I'm giving her weed, she's giving me Xanax, and partying and living what I thought was my best life, you know. And then last December, I had a seizure coming off of Xanax. I was like at a therapist's office and just had a grand mal, something in that seizure, like the full deal, and sent me home. Doctor's thinking it's just like a freak accident, and then had another one at the house, same grand mal seizure, and kept me in the hospital for a couple of days, and then put me on this drug called Keppra. And I know probably some of the nurses know what Keppra is, but there was a very severe reaction to Keppra called Keppra rage, where it's just like you like fully psychotically black out pretty much if you get the severe portion of it. And that happened to me, unfortunately. You know, I was released from the hospital for like, I think it was like 2 or 3 days later. Parents telling me I was kind of off a little bit, not really thinking anything of it. And then it was something like really stupid. I think like my mom had asked me to move my mattress from their room back into my room, and just kind of like flipped a switch in my head. And I guess that whole portion of the Keppra rage started to kick in, and went to like a whole like fight with my dad, you know, like hitting him with a weapon, and then like pushing him, shoving him. Police were called, and next thing I know, I like wake up in a hospital, and I am like 4 felonies deep, 2 misdemeanors, and not really anything to show for it. You know, because my dad's in front, everyone's laughing at me. I would just say, you know, like it's just one of those things where it's like, I'm grateful for my recovery, but I would also say it's something that goes downhill really quickly, you know, like as much as people don't think it is, like THC is very much a gateway drug, and it is very much something that it gets worse as time goes on, I guess, is what I'm going to leave it at. And that's just a portion of my story. Thank you.
This is for you and for the others, but knowing what you know now, and knowing that you have the freedom of recovery, what advice, if you were talking to students, would you give students?
I would say, you don't know what you're getting when you buy it. Like I know a whole bunch of people that will like use these THC pens that have like methamphetamines in them and all these different kinds of drugs. So it's kind of like self-explanatory, but it's easier to quit if you don't even start. And just surround yourself with people that will be winners for you and that aren't gonna like shove a drink or shove like a joint in your face if you're feeling bad or having a bad day.
And then what advice would you give parents?
I would say just know like what addiction looks like, and once you start to see that happen, take action and don't wait, because things will only go downhill the longer you wait.
And since you've got school people, officials, leaders in this room, what advice would you give to the school leaders?
It's more prominent than you think it is, and it's a lot easier to hide it than you think it is. Like I said earlier, like there was a point in time where I would have a pound or two of weed in my car at school, and no one would even come and say anything. So just pay more attention. Yeah.
So what are your plans now?
Now I am getting ready to take an ASVAB, which is the test you take to go into the military, and I'm going to do active duty reserves, and then go up to college actually at UNG, and be in the ROTC, and hopefully get into their nursing program and become a nurse to go help people, obviously. So.
I want to ask you, I think it's good for people to hear, how do you maintain your recovery? How do you not, because I know there's other people that are gonna come along, and there's people you're gonna wanna look cool, you're gonna wanna do this. How do you, and I mean, there's so many people in recovery in this room, that it's been decades, but I think each of them would say it's not easy. What's your game plan for recovery?
For me, it's really sticking to the 12-step program and living my life and my principles through that. And it's also like who you hang around. It's like if I'm going to hang around people that are getting high every so often that I know that are getting high, it just leaves a back door for me to go get high, or get drunk or whatever. It's sticking around people that won't put that in your face, or that aren't doing that, really, really helps a lot.
It's amazing the people that would say they're your friends, but they want to see you fail.
Yeah.
That's a hard thing. So Emily, what support specifically were you able to provide for Jake at the academy?
Yeah, so I caught Jake at the tail end of him before he graduated, and I know that he met with Gabby, who was the counselor there before as well, but I think being able to meet with students and students like Jake and people that are struggling with addiction, being readily available, being able to be at the schools and being readily available to, pull them out of class if they have something going on, or at least be able to meet with them that day or the next day. So we met, and I had group sessions as well, and I did weekly group sessions, and Jake was a big part of that. I think him having some time in recovery, and how long do you have sober? Over a year, okay. Him having some more time in recovery, whether he knew it or not, or whether the other students knew it or not, did offer that piece of support and stability for that group session. So I would lean on Jake to lead some of those sessions and share his experience, and that was really helpful and really beneficial. And I think Amy mentioned this before, but we'll do sober social events where we just have fun. We have fun. We teach them how to have fun without getting high. That was really important for me, getting sober young, and from what we've seen is it's just important to learn how to have fun without that. And the parent support too. We'll offer parent support, any resources, any questions, or guide them in the best of our ability to do that.
So Jake, how did this support that Emily's talking about, how did it help you?
I guess just, like having someone there who I know will understand and, you know, not judge me for like feeling a certain way, and also like actually like being around other people that are trying to be in recovery as well, really helps recovery, you know, just becoming one, you know, instead of being like separate people and walking through it alone.
And I think lastly, we didn't talk about this, but it was on Amy's list of questions. How do you, this is a Drew question, I think, but how do you measure success? I think it's great to hear this story of Jake and other people's stories of success. And we've had parents come and say, having a drug counselor saved my child's life. But how do we try to measure it for grants and whatnot?
Honestly, I've kept really, really simple metrics because the reality is we don't determine outcomes, we just determine the process, and we gotta let the process figure itself out. From my standpoint, what I measured it by was how many kids are you meeting with over the course of the time there? How many individual sessions are you having every single month? How many sober events are we having? How many group sessions are being run? How many parent nights are we successfully having, and then what feedback are we getting from each of those pieces? That's really as detailed as I've gotten. But from my standpoint, I don't want to say it's foolproof because nothing is. The kids want this support and want to talk about it. The parents want these other things, whether they realize they want it or not. And my biggest thing that I wanted to be able to tell kids, much like what Emily brought up, is if they know there's somebody they can get to that's going to talk to them and help them that day or the next day. They know this isn't going to be next week or in a month or in whatever it is. They know they've got access. They'll wait. They'll hold on. And so for me, honestly, there's so many stories, and I'm not in any way, like Jake's is a remarkable story. There are lots of those. And what you don't do when you're the gateway, what you don't do when you're Forsyth Academy is go, yay, woo, yeah, you know, like we have this drug thing and there's over it, and like, etc. Really, it's just celebrating each of the kids and being really, really proud of them, and the people that are working with them and the families, and doing it for the right reasons. I mean, that's how I measure it. Like, my scenario is, when I put my head on the pillow, did we do everything we could? The 4 kids that I have, 2 of them are mine, 2 of them are adopted. And the 2 boys that are adopted because both of their parents were drug addicts. The father passed away. The mother is incarcerated in rehab in some scenario and has been over and over again, and their life has been a disaster, right? Up until now. There's only one way to fix it. And that's everybody working on it a little bit at a time, and people being honest, and people choosing a life that matters.
And a lot of love.
That's it.
We did one of our first suicide summits that we had. A little girl showed up that wasn't a speaker. She was there because she was friends with the mother that son had died by suicide. And she came, her mother got up and told the story of the little girl had cut herself 50-something times, and the mother just happened, I say by the grace of God, to wake up and got upstairs, and her life was saved only because of that. It was 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. But the little girl got up and spoke, and what she said has stuck with me all these years later. She said, I never realized I lived in a community that cared until I came here tonight. And I think lots of times the actions that even government officials take, and I say this with the board I was on, killing our mental health facility. It can be good actions and it can be bad actions. But it makes this unbelievable voice to young people that is, I live in a community that cares. And that for some reason rings true beyond a parent, beyond the people that have to care. You know, to know that there's added people, like all these people around the room, that I live in a community that cares. And I think that sends this much bigger message that now you have accountability to all these people that love you. Now you're brave and you spoke out, now we're all cheering for you. So I think that that is such a wonderful thing that we do have a loving community. Some, I won't give everybody credit. But that we are in a community that does want to help and does care. And I hope that we all convey that to our youth especially. So thank y'all so much, and we'll bring our last panel up. As the UNG people are coming up, we got some really exciting news with that grant that I was telling you about. The county joined in a lawsuit, of the opioid lawsuit, that's going to yield like hundreds of millions of dollars. Eventually, it's like a 16 or 17-year payout, and our county gets in money trickling in. I think we've got 1.2 or $3 million, Nancy, that sort of close. And it just comes in from all the different ways that we sued, and it's supposed to be used and tied toward opioids, into prevention, education, things of that nature, and it's very specific in it. And we use the grant, and Nancy wrote the grant. And we try to make our grant be as collaborative as it can be, and I'm telling you, we put that thing together quickly. But it really helped that Kevin Tanner had been our county manager, and he had done the mental health commission, and we had a good idea of what they were looking for, because he had told me many times that workforce development was so lacking, that there were parts of our state that don't even have a psychologist, much less a psychiatrist. There's no drug prevention. We really don't realize how lucky we are here to have the resources that we have. And I wanted to have tonight at UNG because I'm so excited about the grant, them being a partner in the grant. And and I'll let Katie tell because she teaches it, and about what they offer in a way of education. But I remember her telling me early on, well, we have this program that people can take this class, but we have 150 signed up for it, and we only have spots for 30. And so we were able through this grant to get them 2 more teachers. So we are going to triple what we can do, and that brings, what that means to our community and to our schools is that all these kids, when they get through the program, will be going into the field, and they'll have to do like teachers do, and they'll have to go in and get so many hours of training. So that gives us more people in our community to go in and do their internships within our school system or within our community, so they have greater outreach. So starting with either one of you, what is unique about UNG's addiction counseling program, and what can someone expect from going through the program?
So I'll go through this as simple as I can. In the state of Georgia, in order to be a counselor, you have to have a master's degree, and most programs, in order to get licensed in the state, if they're accredited, require basic information around addiction, but that's it, basic information. So UNG's program is the first program in the state that's accredited, and it is the only program in the state that is an in-person program that's accredited that also offers a specialization in addiction. And what's special about that too is the students who go through that program can still get licensed in the state as mental health providers, and they have a specialization in addiction. So they take an additional 12 credit hours in addiction specifically, so that when they leave, they're experts in addiction. They've met the educational requirements to get a certified master addiction counselor credential in the state, in addition to being eligible for a mental health license. I personally think that's important because people who struggle with mental health don't necessarily struggle with addiction. But everybody who struggles with addiction understands mental health and has struggled with mental health. And so to have somebody who's duly trained in that mental health piece as well as the addiction piece is something that is really needed across the country. So those who go through the clinical track or a clinical program don't get the additional addiction credential. Those who get like a certified addiction counselor training, they get the addiction knowledge without the mental health knowledge. So our program allows for students to graduate with that additional training to be able to deal with both mental health and addiction at the same time.
don't really have much to add. I think from my experience of taking the track and now working in the field, I don't know, maybe not don't know, but I don't often understand how other people who don't have that kind of dual knowledge can work in the addictions field, because there is so much specialized knowledge when it comes to specific theories, specific interventions, ways that you can work with clients, the way that you conceptualize substance use issues as well as mental health issues, and just the prevalence of trauma with clients who struggle with substance use or opioid recovery. And I think that piece of it, that knowledge specifically, has made such a huge difference in my ability, I think, to provide the care that my clients deserve, or the care that people in recovery deserve.
And I would add to that too, the program is designed specifically to not look at addiction only as substances. So I know that was talked about a lot in that first panel. We look at all process addictions to all things, and then there's a comment made about believing that, social media and phone usage is similar to an addiction. And there's research that shows that to be true. We can look at brain scans and see that the same thing is happening in your brain when you're using a drug, it's happening when you're picking up your phone and using it. So that's absolutely true, and is really important for our young people especially. So the program is all encompassing in that way. We're looking at all different types of addictions, not just substances.
So what influenced y'all to go toward the addiction counseling work?
And so for me, I have a brother who struggled with addiction in his teen years, and it was at the same time as I was going through my master's program. So I was sort of learning about this. I was interning about it in programs and seeing it professionally, and throughout my career as a counselor, master's level counselor, and then also through his experience, and I was not here in another state, I was better here. I saw a lot of the problems. The system is broken. He got a lot of poor care. There were a lot of things that I felt stuck as a counselor that I wanted to do but couldn't do for various reasons. So I felt like I needed to go back for more schooling because I thought people would listen to me more if I had a PhD. And the goal always to be to run an agency. I'm going to do this agency right, and it's going to work better, and it's going to provide the right services. And sort of somewhere along the line, it occurred to me that would help one place, one small place. But if I instead decide to train and educate future counselors, they can go to all the places, and they can make a change at all the places. And so I just felt like being an educator was going to help there be greater reach for better trained counselors in the addiction field at more places. And they can graduate and they can stay right here, which most of our graduates do. They stay right here in this area. But those who don't are going to make some difference in other states, other regions, other counties. And so I felt like I was better served that way. So that's how I ended up on the education side of it.
Yeah, for me, it wasn't necessarily a career path that I had thought about or considered. When I was applying to schools, it was more that mental health focus. And then I took Foundations of Addictions with Dr. Liberson, and I think that class really changed my view and changed kind of my focus. I think very similarly to what Dr. Liberson just said about addiction really being about your relationship with whatever behavior you're engaging in, right? Whether that's substances, whether it's social media, et cetera. And when I looked at things in that lens, I think it made a whole lot more sense to me because I think it's really applicable in a lot of ways. And that class was also really experiential. We attended groups, we led groups, recovery groups, and it was really inspiring sitting in those rooms with people who constantly chose recovery, which is a really hard path in a lot of ways and a really rewarding path. And it was really inspiring as someone who doesn't have any immediate family who struggle with substance use. There are a lot of people in my circle who do. So being able to work with a population that is often stigmatized or misunderstood or faces a lot of barriers, it was really important to me. I just felt passionate about it, and I think the education that I received made a lot of sense, and it just kind of evolved from there.
So how did UNG's program prepare you for your work? I mean, it's one thing to go to school, but it's another when you get out and you're in the field.
Yeah, so I started working at as a mental health technician at a hospital to get a little bit more experience, and I found that the more time I spent with people in recovery, the more applicable the education that I was learning was in the difficulties that they were talking about, or specific substances. I think, one of the main classes is psychopharmacology, right? There are so many substances out there, and the effects that they have on your brain and how they interact with other substances. Without that class, I think, as a foundation for all of the substances out there, I think I'd be lost in a lot of ways. And to, again, one specific theory that I was trained in through Dr. Lamberson's motivational interviewing, which I know, or I imagine plenty of you have heard about, and that specifically is focusing on eliciting just changing behavior that you want to change, and I think that specifically has made a really big difference too. So kind of really specific things like that have made a big difference.
And I think it's important, especially with all these tables that are around, the needs are so great and there's room for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when my dad suffered from alcoholism and he reacted much better to somebody that was in recovery because he felt like he was smarter than the people that had never been in recovery. But he always said, I can't when another addict to addict, they can see right through me. And I think that there is, when it comes to supporting people, I don't think it's necessarily what might not work for some of these people in recovery that are helping people greatly, but it doesn't mean that there's not a place for people needing a master's in addiction recovery too.
One of the things, actually the thing, and there's many of my students are in here so they can back me up on this. I tell them the first day of class, so every student who goes through our program has to take the initial class. And in that class, I tell them, at the end of this class, the one thing I want you to learn is I want you to learn about the people who struggle with addiction. I do not care if you can tell me which drug is an up, which one is a down. You can Google that, just like your teenagers can Google that. I need you to understand these people. I need you to understand their struggle and what's really going on. Because more often than not, it's not about the substance, it's about something else.
I think that's so important and great advice. Thank y'all so much for being here. Now, do we have any questions? We have just a few minutes. Is there any questions from the audience, from any of the panel that anybody would like to ask?
I'd like to ask, you spoke about taking a selfie. Everybody hear me okay? You spoke about taking a cell phone, and I've seen instances where that happens, and it's not a good interaction. Elaborate a bit, some of the skills you use, the steps you use to get that rough time.
Take them in my house with the kids and with everybody else. I think you have to know me in general as part of it. We were having that conversation earlier, but I think for me, it's the conversation with all of my children and then even the ones that we work with on being grateful for what you have and understanding what's yours and what's not yours and what you gotta earn over the course of that time. And my biggest thing, and I talk with the kids at Gateway and I talk with my own children, number one rule is be honest and no lie, like as we go through. And if I can trust you, I'm gonna let you do all kinds of things because you can, you've earned it, like you're going to have that ability. But if you break that trust, I can't let you do these things because you're gonna hurt yourself and because it damages our relationship. I don't let them take them into their room, like we have a place to put the phones. And then we just talk about those things a lot. And right or wrong, like Pastor is 5, and we've been dealing with stuff, and even the therapist said to me to a certain degree, Drew, are you sure you should talk to that with these guys? And I'm like, this is their life. Like, so I can't hide these realities from them of what's going on with their mom or what they've been through or what the other stuff is. We're gonna openly talk about it. And not in a shame on you or you're damaged or theirs. I don't believe any of that, right? Like for me, it's let's just be honest about where we're sitting and know if you're honest with me, we can figure anything out. If you're not honest, we can't go really anywhere. And so just we hit that over and over again, and then just patience. Like I won't be moved. Like in terms of where it is, if it's right, I'm gonna stay there. And like, I have this conversation a lot, parents will come in, they're like, I'm like, I can work with you on all this part I cannot move on. And my faith too, a lot of it is it will work out. But with my kids, it's my job to prepare them. Like I feel that over and over and over again. And if I let them run with something that's gonna hurt them, then I'm setting them up, right? So those are the conversations, just in a nutshell.
Do we have any more questions? I know we've been going a long time. I did know Todd Shiplett wanted to say something about the MAC treatment, but Eddie, can you?
Hi, Todd had an emergency. My name is Paulina. I'm the Director of Community Health Services at Georgia Highlands. So if I could speak on his behalf.
My kid, microphone. Awesome.
Hi everyone, my name is Paulina. Again, I'm the Director of Behavioral Health Services at Georgia Highlands Medical Services. You were talking about partnering with Nancy and her team and, getting grants. Nancy also helped us, get some grants to kind of serve the community. So I want to take a few minutes to talk about our medically assisted recovery. So right now, a lot of times, we have to turn a lot of people away just because they can't afford inpatient care. A lot of times we're going through opioid use disorder, alcohol use disorder, and oftentimes it costs a lot of money for these treatments. So at Georgia Highlands, as long as most people are detoxed and they're stable, we will kind of take over that treatment, right? So rather than going to PHP for 5 days a week when people have lives and work, we're offering them kind of another option, right? Where you can come to us once a week. We can fill those prescriptions for you, whether it be Vivitrol, whether it be Suboxone, to kind of normalize your life again. We also offer counseling services in tangent with that. I'm not saying that PHP and IOP is not a great program. They are great programs, but oftentimes people can't take off 5 days a week. People can't take off 3 days a week for IOP. And I think that this can provide an additional option for those in the community, and with those grants, we can offer it at a much more affordable price range too, because of funding and grants. So,
And there's an exit strategy too. That's the biggest complaint I've heard through the years was, well, you're just exchanging one drug for another drug, but y'all offer counseling with it?
we do. We offer counseling with it. It is part of our program. We go through phases. Our first phase is once a week for 4 weeks, right? If you can pass that, great. We will titrate you down to phase 2, which is twice a week for a month. Or I'm sorry, it's on a bi-weekly basis, right? So every 2 weeks for a month. If you can pass that, we do every 3 weeks for about 2 months, and then our last phase is once a month. You know, I think that's much more doable, much more affordable, and also time. You can't, you know, part of that is being able to connect back with your community, right? And if we can spend that time fostering that growth, fostering, like you said, the connections, right? It's about community, it's about family, it's about all of those things. And as everybody who has worked in addiction knows, sobriety, the opposite of addiction is not sobriety, it's connection, right? So if we can feel connected to those things and the people that we love and the things that we care about, that's what's going to help people stay sober. You were talking about, you know, having friends, right? And having people who care about you, who actually genuinely care about your well-being. And I think that's what matters at the end of the day, you know? So Nancy, thank you to you and your team to help us get this grant and to be able to help us offer this service. If you have any questions, I'll do this right there over at the corner. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Well, we want to thank our panel. We want to thank each of you. It would have been pretty boring if we were all just talking to each other. So I'm grateful for all of you that came tonight. I hope you walked away learning something. I think we all need to say a prayer and be grateful for our schools and what all y'all are doing and how much you care.
I need to thank Tom Cleveland too. Tom, if you will wait, please. Tom, long time school board member.
being here. He's been a champion for our drug council for many, many, many years. So, thank you to UNG, thank you again to our camera crew, and just thank you all. And let's all just keep working together to provide a better community. Thank you.